Hello, everybody. Welcome to That Proud Black Woman Show. I hope everybody is doing good today. The weather is so beautiful outside. Just in case you don't know, you can go, have some picnic, have some good time. You know how it goes. So today it's episode 2. It's just so fantastic to have my wonderful guest today. Who do I have here today? I have Councillor Khadijah Haliru, and I'm just going to let her say a little bit about herself before we go into the show proper today. How are you doing, Khadijah?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning. Good morning to everyone. My name is Khadijah Haliru and I live in Ingersoll. I am a Nigerian immigrant, very proudly so, and just having a wonderful Saturday joining you on the show. It is not lost on me that a lot of people are inspired by what we've done here in Ingersoll, and I think there's a lot that we can share to make that beneficial to all. Yeah. So I'm a
Beautiful,
mother of three,
beautiful.
married,
Oh,
and we all moved here. We're all immigrants, including my last baby who was 4 months old when we got here. So we all first generation immigrants and raised them from when they were babies to now. My first is just graduated university,
wow.
and my second is in law school. And my baby is 12th grade, just graduating, and has gotten admission to Western. So I'm about to be an empty nester, and I'm also a business owner, lending a lot of my time to some coaching as well. And I'm a professional at work as a supply chain professional. I work a full time job. So I'm busy.
Wow,
And
wow.
so here I
When
am on a Saturday morning doing this
when you
again.
said
So
your
my pleasure.
baby, I was thinking it was going to be like a 5-year-old, but wow,
You
if
know.
they're done with 12th grade,
Yep.
that's fantastic. Like you don't
Yep.
look like you have kids that are that grown. So
Yes.
yeah, it's really fantastic to have you here today. I'm so happy. And before we go into the show proper, if you are joining us today, please mark your attendance in the comment section. Where are you watching us from? Which city? Which country? Let us know. That's how we mark attendance on the show, and then we can shout you out as well. So,
Mm.
yes, the title of this particular season is Dare to Be Different. And how did I get to find out about you? I think I was on Instagram one day and I had seen a post. Before now, I've never heard of Ingersoll, right? And I was like, this person is Nigerian. How did they become a counselor in a city in Canada? So it kind of piqued my interest. And then I went like into looking at where's Ingersoll and how did you get to that state where you're confident enough to say, you know what, I'm going to be actually contesting to be a counselor. So please share a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So the journey to being an immigrant is one of, the confidence that we bring to the table, the fact that most of us are accomplished, graduates, and we have our passions and we already established what we're good at before we even make the decision to come to Canada. And so coming to Canada, I have a background in public administration, so that's my first degree. And coming to Canada, I was already, accomplished at my job and trying to make headway. So you come to a country, primarily we left as an immigrant to the United States. And
Wow.
so there I started my master's in mental health and human services. But then we moved to Canada in 2006 after 3 years in the States. So we knew we wanted to come to a place where we could thrive because there was a lot of uncertainties over there. So we arrived here, and the first thing I do when I move to a new city, because for us, Canada was a fresh start. It was like, wow.
Absolutely.
And having lived in the US with some idea of how North American systems work, I went straight to the city hall in the town that we moved to called Mission, BC. And Mission was the first city in the whole of Canada to have a Black mayor at the time we came.
Oh,
And so no one had ever talked about it, or we had never heard about it at that time. He was from Kenya. He had come for his master's in urban and regional planning, and he ended up becoming the mayor of Mission because he married a woman from Mission. And then, having lived there, Nigerians, we have a tendency to contribute, to offer, to community build. And so he was able to establish and actually run and win the mayoral seat. So when we come into a country and we see that possibility, I went to the town as a person who wanted to start a business. I wanted to start a daycare and I had questions. So Within 2 months, I went over and I asked, so how do I do this? So they gave me some, training, some road maps, resources, and I was ready to start my daycare. And then I get back to looking for work after my baby was about 9 months. And you start working and you start making connections and you start learning about the system. And then all of a sudden you want to settle down, you want to buy a house, and you realize you can't afford it. So Vancouver was really hot at the time, just like Ontario is right now. We had to move down here for housing. So when you come into a new country, I mean, a new place again, because I was able to establish so quickly in Vancouver, I did the same thing in Brampton, which is where we transferred to, and quickly found myself within the walls of the city hall, offering suggestions, offering advice, networking with business people. Um, and then you start to build on your knowledge of how the systems work. And so all of us are here moving around from place to place, sometimes not necessarily really digging in to know how are the systems working for me. So when you ask questions and you learn more, you understand how it works, you know how to navigate it. And so when I set up in Brampton and established to the point where I just launched my business, Nigerian Stew, in 2016, the Nigerian Stew in the Jar really made a lot of excitement across the world, I might say. It was the first time we had ever bottled it. So I got that sense, and I got a lot of support from the city. I started a nonprofit, got a lot of set up from the city, training. I felt I understood the system from both sides as an individual, new immigrant, new person seeking help, and as someone who had the background of how systems of government work. But then you come to a place like Ingersoll after we launched, we felt we needed to establish this was a business that was kind of booming at the time. 2016, I felt, okay, now I need my own factory, my own little kitchen, my own place where I could bottle my stew. That's when we started looking for a place to move to. Then we moved to Ingersoll.
Wow.
So again, hitting Ingersoll, I felt I knew everything I needed to do. Went to the city hall. Hey, what support can I get? I'm looking for spot. I see some leases. Are there any incentives? I want to hire one or two, three people. And you put yourself out there, but then you forget you're Black in a new community that doesn't have that representation. And so a lot of roadblocks I hit because people didn't understand, first of all, what am I trying to do? What kind of kitchen are you looking for? I would be asked, oh, you can use that church, you could use this church kitchen, you could use this community center's kitchen. And I was like, no, no, no. I'm actually an industrial kind of kitchen. I had to explain my way through. And at some point, someone told me, well, you can go to the next town and maybe see if they have that because we don't have that here. So
That's
I just,
sorry to cut in. The challenges, we're gonna get to it later. I don't want it to
oh, yeah.
let people
So
into that
that's the
yet.
question. The question is how I got into it, is being able
Yeah.
to get to that point before I started,
Before
asking
you
more
started.
questions. Yeah.
So one thing that I have noticed in what you have been saying is that you took the initiative to, make that effort to go to, the city. Or for a lot of people coming into the country, they don't even know that those opportunities exist.
Yeah.
They don't know who to guide them, where to go. How did you come about thinking, you know what, I could go to the city and ask questions, about what is out there
Because
for my
as
business?
immigrants, it's a fresh start. And you don't want to do anything wrong. You want to understand the rules of your new country. You want to make sure you're abiding. Again, as Black people, we're easily um, seen to not in the Western world comply. And it's unfortunate stereotype that someone would see me and hold their bag in an elevator because they feel like I'm a certain person and I'm a certain way. So in order to comply, you want to ask those questions to make sure I'm doing it right. Not assuming from wherever you come from, because this is a different culture. And that culture is what I try to understand. I understood immediately that the Canadian culture was different from the US culture. Even when we went to get our SIN cards, you line up for hours. In the US, it's boom, boom, boom. And you come to Canada, the first thing you learn about the Canadian culture is patience.
Absolutely.
It's patience.
Everything has to be,
There's
you
no
have to be
rush.
patient.
Okay. So then you
Everybody
ask
takes things
questions, you
slow.
take time to learn the system, and then you start to become a Canadian. And that's kind of how it started. So asking questions come from wanting to do things right and not necessarily jumping in and assuming that you can do, there's so many things that we can learn from just asking questions.
Questions, and that's awesome, because For example, those of us that are, I don't know where everybody watching me from is, but judging by my own background, which is Nigeria, a lot of things are, you don't really ask questions. You just want to jump into it without a lot of planning. And, let me just start with using my kitchen without realizing that that might not even be acceptable here, for all kinds of food hygiene and all kinds of food laws and things like that. So sometimes people don't grow past that environment. But in your situation, you're already thinking big. You're already thinking outside of the box. I don't want to be stereotyped. I don't want to do things in a wrong way. I want to know exactly how it is done, and I want to do it right. And I think that's a huge stepping stone that people can learn from. If you
Yeah.
are in a new environment, learn, ask questions, not necessarily from maybe people in your household. Also, Google is a man's best friend. I always say that. Google something. Maybe in 2006, it might not be as common, but right now, the social media helps as well, although you have to like filter out what you see on
Yeah.
social media. But it is very
Yeah.
important to ask questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because what people need to realize when you see something out there in the marketplace, when you see a product in the shop, there is all sorts of regulations that go with having something in the shop. There's all sorts of, rules and laws that guide health and safety and all of that. So if you ask yourself the question, how can I compete with that? Then you must be willing to open yourself up to say, let me go ask the right questions. Let me learn what I need to do. And that's when you actually take the next step into the world of, okay, I can compete. So there's another essence of being a Nigerian is you feel like you deserve just like the other person deserves it. But then you've got to go through what that other person went through. And until you can do that, you really can't say that it's unfair. The system is unfair to you because you still keep working and operating in this bubble. And you don't necessarily see that you need to learn and actually take a step outside, which is why I definitely, everywhere I go, do my research, seek my, resources, ask the right questions because I'm like, I'm about to do this. What do I need to know?
True.
So
And
yeah.
yes, talking about racism being a part of the society, also we have to do our part. As you said, we have to do our part. You have to learn to compete. A lot of times I remember myself and a friend was talking one time, and we're like, when we are opening this African store, African restaurants, why is it only limited to a certain area? Why can't we make it look like somewhere like where people can buy a franchise as well? It's Nigerian food, because we see this with the Asian food, we see this with Indian, we see this with Chinese. It becomes a delicacy. What are we doing? Which brings me to the question of the soup in a jar you were talking about that you launched in 2016. You must have seen the need for it, right? And then you said, I'm going to take that step to put that there so that Nigerians too would also be recognized worldwide.
Yes.
So can you take us through that process a little bit? How?
Yeah. So full-time mom, when my kids were young, you're full-time mom. And, sometimes every Nigerian home knows about cooking stew on the weekends or freezing them and making sure you have enough stew for the month or for the week. And you come home sometimes, mommy, the stew is finished. And when the kids say stew is finished, there's nothing to eat because they don't know what to eat when stew is when there's no stew in the house, right?
Absolutely.
So you start wondering, you're making some of these things, you're rushing, you're trying to balance your life. And at some point, when the stew is even in the house, you come back and you're like, no one brought out the frozen stew. There's no stew tonight. Because then you're waiting hours trying to defrost stew in the microwave. So then you say, you know what? Something's got to give. So I've always been a planner. I'm a firstborn of many kids. I don't want to say the number because people won't believe me. So my father had 20 of us. I'm a firstborn of 20. I've been cooking in big batches for a very long time. And so I don't know how to cook small. And so when I cook, I have to freeze, I have to store. And I started to really, wonder how could we not have something that is similar to the pasta sauce on the shelves? Because every Nigerian knows when you come to Canada and you're desperate, you're rushing, you're buying that pasta sauce to quickly make stew, and then you realize it's not the same taste. You realize, okay, this is not the same. And it takes a while before you figure out the right peppers, the right tomatoes. So I knew that there was that need to have something ready. And I did 2 years of research trying to figure out how we could compete, how we could have it look like that, how we could have it, you know, just stay on the shelf where people can pick it and it doesn't spoil and all of that. So I had to go through that rigmarole of, courses. I spent a lot of money coaching with people in the States and trying to get, and it was just to make sure I was doing it right. So when we launched, It was ready, it was approved, it was everything, and hit the shelves, and everybody got really excited. I'm still unfortunately not able to meet my demand. COVID has hit us out of the market again, and now we've got competition. People are all trying to come in, and I'm so proud to see all the competition, because the more of us, the more we open those roads. I just got into Sobeys, and it's hard to even be in every
Wow,
Sobeys that I've been
congratulations.
asked. Thank you. Asked to supply. So as a group, I hope and pray that we keep trying, because again, one day we will have that aisle, that is Nigerian aisle in the stores. It started and it's continuing to grow. And then that's kind of how it started. You just want to make sure you do your research. And then I wanted to be on the shelf just like a pasta sauce. I didn't want to have a sticker or a paper sticker on something. Every time we have the stores, there's this sense that it's Nigerians that will buy it. I didn't think that it was just Nigerians that will buy it. I thought we have a cuisine that is loved around the world. And even at that time, it wasn't yet hot, but I knew in my house when I did my stew with jollof rice and I served my neighbors, they loved it. And it was a conversation of, oh my God. And so I would put the stew in the mason jars and share, or do the little jollof packs and share. And so I always knew that there was a market. So when I came to Ingersoll, I focused on marketing it to whites, not Nigerians. I said, this is a cuisine just like Chinese cuisine, Indian cuisine, Nigerian cuisine is this and this. And so I put it on the map, and everyone got excited. So through COVID, when I didn't have a business to run, jollof rice and stew was the
Was
topic here. Everybody was calling. And when I saw it was hot, I opened up, I did a supper club, invited them for jollof rice, for pounded yam. And now we've grown as Nigerians here. And I'm telling them, if you have a food business, there is a market for you.
true, true. So we'll come back to the matter of, marketing. Before we continue, I'm just going to shout out people. Thanks, Datari, for joining from Canada. Thanks, Modupe, also. And also, Chris A, thank you for joining. If you're joining us, please rep yourself in the comment section. Where are you watching us from? Which city? Which country? Let us know. That's how we mark attendance on this show. So yes, talking about marketing, a
Nice.
lot of times when I see like Nigerians creating Nigerian food, or Africans, probably West Africans, because I can't speak for other African countries, they just focus on marketing Nigerians. And then after a year or two, they get run down because there's so many competition. And it's only a small amount of Nigerians, because it's like, when, especially here, I live in Toronto. If you go to parties, you see the same people. If you go to the store, you see the same people. So if you're marketing to only Nigerians, thinking, well, only Nigerians will understand our taste palette, our food, then how do you, create that generational wealth that we're looking for? In your case, you talked about marketing to people that are not necessarily Nigerian, to white people, so that they can understand that that cuisine is as good as any other one. So how were you able to break into that market? How were you able to convince them? Because for people, for example, they'll be like, oh, we like spicy food. White people can't afford, or can't, you know, um, eat spicy food because their head is going to go on fire and all of that. How were you able to push that and to convince them to buy?
Okay, so to be fair to everyone, I'll tell you my background. As a 3-year-old, my mom took me to school for my first class, and she handed me over to an Indian lady. And then when the classroom was opened, the classroom was made up of about 25 of us, and I only saw 5 Black kids. There were Indians, there was Pakistan, there was a Lebanese, there was an Egyptian girl, there were 3 American girls, and there were about 6 British girls from different countries, about 2 Dutch. That was my 3-year-old nursery 1 classroom. And so growing up in primary school, I grew up with a lot of nationalities, and our parents, PTA looked like Canada to me, because the Filipino mom will bring that cake, the Korean mom will bring that cake. And throughout from grade school, from nursery to primary, all the countries of the world just kept coming and going and coming and going. And I was lucky that my dad was part of a multinational, that we had that diversity, even in Nigeria. So for me, growing up, our parents had no other way to celebrate us except through our culture and our food. So in the summers, we would have a concert, we would learn how to dance all sorts of Nigerian dances, and then They will come with their own country dances, and we would have a display of the world's culture. And when it came to food, my mom was part of the bake sale moms. So they would take a whole classroom and put all the chairs and tables outside, and it would be like a restaurant for that day. And there would be a beautiful variety of food. So I come from the sense that I know that people want to try other foods. I want to try other foods. Why won't other people want to try my food? Because in Nigeria, growing up, we were the host, we were respected, and they also had the opportunity to share their culture with us and introduce their culture with us to us. So I feel like that was my orientation in understanding beyond just the culture that we come from. Because when you come from it being just us, there is the comfort zone that yes, you just want to market to our people. So I don't see that as, it's just a different kind of background and insight that we have. And that's why I think it's important for me to share that people need to know that we have the power in our food. And even when you watch TV, you see all these chefs around the world now going to Nigeria and appreciating our cuisine. So I've always known that as a kid. Maybe some people just are waking up to that, but it's not their fault. It's just now that we know, we need to capitalize on it. And so when
True.
I came to Ingersoll, it was easy for me. I just set up a supper club, and I said, the African Experience Supper Club. Take a trip to Africa, mini West African experience. I was just putting all those things on Facebook, and people started to actually respond and buy tickets to my events. And when I would host an event, I would actually serve suya and salad as a first course. I would do a three-course meal, and then I would serve jollof rice and chicken, just mini portions, and then I would end up with pounded yam. And by the time they were done pounded yam, they were like,
The stuff.
you know, and that was it. And so for me, coming to the community, as at the time I came, I was the only Black person I could see, and I had to be visible in a positive way. So I set up the shop downtown, and I had a boldly African experience, dining experience, and people would call and, oh my God, I never tried it, I never tried it. So from one person trying it, and then it started to spread through the community. People started coming. I closed down in 2021 the pop-up restaurant because we started to do the shutdown for COVID, reopen, shut down, and I just shut it down. And now it's an event that you buy tickets to go. When I advertise that I'm doing it, people still call me. So when is the next one? Like I missed the last one you did. And that's how you introduce yourself to people with the confidence, bold, I'm worth it. I have something to share, because I feel like every immigrant needs to have that positive value proposition. I asked the students at Western just 2 days ago when I had the moderation for graduate students, and they were talking about the negative experiences of being an immigrant. And a question I asked was, what is your value proposition? How do you respond? Someone said they told him to go back to where he came from. And so that was my topic. How do you respond to that? And one of them is doing a nursing and a PhD in nursing. And I said, how do you respond to somebody that tells you that? You tell them what you are, who you are first, and why you're here. So I am here studying a PhD in nursing because I want to contribute to Canada. And you give them that value proposition. Well, as a PhD student, I'm here to contribute to the country. Who can
Exactly.
say anything to that? So, as a Canadian, as a Nigerian Canadian, I'm here to add value to Canada with my culture, with my background, with my upbringing. And that's kind of what I think everyone should do, because everyone deserves a space.
True. And talking about that, because you talked about you being in Ingersoll and being like the only pretty much visible Black person, that you thought about it. How can I make myself like contribute to this community? And it makes me just think about my own, because my sister as well is she just moved, she just relocated with her family to a small village in New Brunswick, and I think they're predominantly French, and I think it's about less than 2,000 people in there. And at first, when she told me, I was kind of concerned. You're pretty much going to be the only Black person in this place. And I think I would recommend this video. Go back and watch it in case you're not watching, and see how you can actually add value. Maybe before we know it, she's also contesting to be the council of the city. You never know. So it takes a lot of confidence. For a lot of people, it doesn't come naturally to them. But when we watch people like you thrive, you're pretty much a trailblazer, and it will make people say, oh, so this is possible in Canada? You
Yes.
know, it makes you rethink, and it makes you like re-strategize. What can I do next? How can I also be like this person? And this brings me back to talking about business and marketing and all of that. So for you to be, a lot of people will say, oh, for you to be able to break into the market as a Nigerian with your own cuisine, maybe you might have to make it a fusion where it's like maybe Afrofusion kind of meal. What do you think about that? Do you think we should fuse it for us to break into the market, or you can actually be purely Nigerian, purely African cuisine, and you will still be able to break it in?
Okay, so I believe in a concept of there is no one like us. Every country, every group of people, every identity is unique. We are all unique in the way God has created us. If you find yourself Nigerian and you're unique in our diversity, even within Nigeria, and you know your cuisine very well, then stick to your cuisine because people are looking for uniqueness. People are looking for difference. If you're fusing with something they're already used to, and now you compete with something that is the real thing,
Uh,
then you can, but you've got to set your own agenda. You've got to create your own marketing style to attract a different audience. But if you're looking for the person looking for an authentic experience, then that's not their market. So it is possible that you could decide to do that, but you have to have a different target market. Because for me, people tell me my sauce is too hot. If like when I started, people said it was too hot, and now that I came to this community, a lot of them consider it too hot. And so I did. I remember 2019, before COVID, I had done the Christmas. I did extra hot, regular, and extra hot, so that I could. And it really went well, except COVID came, and most of that stew just went best before October last year. So I've been giving it away. Just it wasn't really something that I could even say I tested that worked. But then I say to them now, it's mild, and if you must dumb it down, you can always add tomato paste. So what they've suggested is, maybe I should just tell them how to use it. So guess what? There's some recipe cards we can use to guide people. But essentially, when you sample people, and that's the idea. When you sample people, people get to know. So right now, when we talk about people that are launching, like I'm very grateful after I won the election, I got to know about so many Nigerians that moved into the area and they reached out to me, and now I can see we're almost 500
wow.
across my county. And in this little group that we formed, everybody's throwing, oh, I make meat pies, oh, I make Nigerian food, I make jollof rice, I make party, you know, uh, you know, party samples or stuff. I just called them on a Zoom and I said, guess what? I've done the homework for you. Every one of you, I need you to have your health inspected license. You need your catering license because guess what? I cannot serve this community by myself. I need everybody to be ready because there is a market. And I do not need you guys to think we're the only ones to buy from each other. So I'm actually just hosting the African Experience Festival and Trade Show on Canada Day to bring everybody together with their food. And for the first time, I'm not even cooking. I just want to make sure I can focus on my stew. And I asked everybody to come together, and we're expected to have this wonderful party because you are unique and people are looking for you. If I've had people
Absolutely.
still going to skip the dishes and say they're looking for African experience in this area that there's nothing else, then there's now a variety of us that I definitely have to share that. So if not because these women were authentic, to see I make Nigerian meat pie, which I ordered by the way and is amazing. And I make this and I make that and I try to somebody's actually making just moi moi in my community. And I ordered from her and I said, oh my God. And I, like you just said, had to encourage a few of them to come out of their homes and find a commercial kitchen because if you want to grow big, you have to get out of that comfort zone. And so it's the coaching that I consistently do to let people realize it is you competing with the Chinese and the Indian and every community that has come here. You must do it the way they're doing it to be seen. And
True.
there is a void that we have to fill now because there's cuisines all over the world that are take away, take and go. You can't find Nigerian food unless you attend a Nigerian party.
True.
or come to my house and I feed you some lunch or dinner. So let's do this. And that's one of the things that I think people need to be aware of.
True. So before we continue, I'm also going to ask people, if you're joining us, please leave your name, leave where you're watching us from in the comment section. That's how we mark attendance on this show. That's how we know you attended, and we can shout you out as well. Now,
Yeah.
for where people have been waiting for, you are the councillor of Ingersoll. How did that come about when you said, you know what, I think I'm going to have to run for councillor? Like, where did that drive come from?
All right. So I didn't plan it. And like I said, when you are willing to contribute to your community and you're vocal. So I remember telling you when I came as a new person and I saw I needed to be visible. I knew that I needed to have trust from them in the community, and I needed to be visible so people can find it normal seeing me. I don't want to be hidden, that you see me in the shop one day, you're like, and then the stares continue every day. So I got the shop downtown. I was in the middle of downtown. Everybody knew about me, that new shop, that new lady, that knew everything. And as I was thriving there, the building belonged to the town. And they ended up voting to sell it because they couldn't maintain it. And so I was kind of unable to stay there because the new landlords that bought it made changes to it, and they altered the composition of my shop. There was a public washroom beside me and a phone booth beside me, so they took it away, and then customers started to think it was me. Why would you do that? I'm like, no, 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 it's the new owners. So by the time I spent a month explaining to my beautiful customers and people that loved me at that point, I said I wasn't going to let that negative affect me. So I left and I went to the Facebook group that we had, and I wondered why the town would do that. This is a public space that was very easily helping people, old people, would come to eat and they want to use the washroom. I would even open the door for them. I would do everything that was honorable. And now I had this negative impact. And I had to use that as a reason to apologize that I've moved and I've shut down that location. So as the conversations continued, why would the town do that? Because you know what, no matter what, when people are not aware of what's happening, it's a different thing that politicians can get away with a lot. But when people are aware, then there's a difference. So I made them aware that this was belonging to me, but has been taken away from me because of the decision that was made. And I was just a simple business owner who came to add value to this community. And I had something unique and different that I brought. And when people saw how I felt, they started, why would the town do that? Why would they do that? Why would they? This is sad. I love that woman. I love that shop. That was a very nice place. Da, 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 da. And so it continued. And so I would lend my voice just to say, hey guys, I found a new location. I'm here. I'm here. And then I have this event coming. And so I took advantage of that support and I would thank them. I would say, hey, dear Ingersoll, thank you so much for the support and the love. And I communicated respect. I communicated my pain, and I communicated suggestions when I had them. So I think based on that, for the last 7 years of being an active Facebook member, I was, I told you I shut down in 2021, September. I actually broke down because unlike all of you that were home resting from work, I was working, doing those supper clubs, doing that jollof rice sampling and stew selling and trying to get things going. And so I basically disappointed a lot of people. People went to Facebook. I cannot believe she's shut down again. I cannot believe when I saw her packing, my heart broke. This is someone who's trying so hard. And then a politician, a professor from Fanshawe College went and made a post and said, Khadijah, we have seen you. We have seen your hard work. We have seen the effort you've made. As a business professor, you have done everything right, and shutting down is not your fault. I copied that post, I saved it, and I said, God, thank you. Because people validated that you're not sitting and waiting for a handout. You're here to contribute. You've done your best. You've worked hard. COVID happened. It was not your fault. And I said, thank you. And so as soon as I shut down and I came back, I broke down trying to rest, staying in bed all day. And then they came and approached me to run for council.
Wow.
I did not plan to run for council. So when my friend came and said, Khadijah, you have so much respect in the community. Can you please run for council? Because you have made us see what is possible. Because when you come as an immigrant, you have a different perspective. Immigrants add a different voice to any conversation. Our problem solving skills are numerous because we've come from different ways. Even coming to Canada was a decision we made. So when you have already done all of that, trust in yourself that you're capable of navigating any waters. And when you share, which is the mistake all of us make, is we hold on the struggle that we've overcome already, but it's a learning for someone who hasn't heard it. So when you share, you know what, back in my country, we did this, and I know it doesn't work, but this is what really should be happening here. I would imagine that this happens in a developed country. And you bring the positives from your country, you share, you're like, huh, that would be nice. I wish we could do that, you know? And so over the years of doing that, people will hear you, recognize you. And I say to Nigerians everywhere, we are we bring the best ideas to the table. It doesn't have to be the best idea for that solution, but the idea is always totally different and totally respected. But oh, yeah, but maybe not for this situation. But at least you are able to come up with something that people can't even dream of. We're 200,000 people competing. We have some unique ideas. So when you are Nigerian, please believe in yourself that much and know that what you share is valuable. And that's kind of how it happened. And because I know that I have it in me to offer more, I it took me a while. I talked to my family and I said, well, I know I can do it because I've been doing it already. My daughter says, Mommy, you've already been doing it.
You
And
just have to
so
put a
I said,
title on
okay.
it.
So I took up the challenge and I truly did not campaign as much as I was supposed to because I didn't want to go beyond myself to do any. I just put my face. I was the only one who put my face on my poster because I said, I'm Black. You're going to know who I am. Everybody else had just their name. So I was the only face on any of the posters and I put them in strategic locations saying, hey, and my slogan was vote Khadijah Haliru, diversity matters. And that's all I said. I said, because a diverse table solves better problems, solves bigger problems. And the table, you need some diversity to move forward. And at small town, I said to them, growing up here just in the within 10 years, we've seen a very, really strong influx of people from all over the world, especially the GTA. You can't ignore that. There are people that need representation. And that's pretty much what I said in any debate, in everything we did. And I guess it resonated. And that's kind of how I won. So,
So
everybody, that's the simplest template I could give.
that's awesome. So when they came to you and they said, you know what, Khadijah, I want you to run for councillor. I know that even before thinking about it, if somebody had come to me and said, you know what, I want you to run for councillor, I know the first thing that will come to my mind would be one, the fear of losing. That would be one. Two would be finances. How do I fund, my campaign and all of that? So what were the challenges that you faced or you thought that you would face before accepting to say, you know what, I'm running for council?
All right. So this is what I did. So when I was asked, I thought about it. Once my family said they think it was okay. So I actually, in the whole course of time that I've been here, I've made a handful of friends. I made a list of all the people I said I thought were my friends. So I put them on paper, 25, and I invited them for a breakfast. They came for a breakfast, and I said, the reason I'm calling everybody here is because I want to let you know that I'm considering running for council. And I want to hear what every one of you has to say. And I was blown away. I asked my daughter to record, and every single person said, Khadijah, oh my God, we need somebody like you. I love the way you come up with your solutions and the way you've dealt with the town. Honestly, we have heard you. Oh my God, I would vote for you. Every single one of them said that. And I made sure they knew I was recording. So I said, so you guys think I will win an election in this town? Absolutely, Khadijah, we think you would win an election in this town. I said, okay. So then I went to the group, 12,000 people, and I did a live. And I said, all right, I'm here, dear Ingersoll. I would like to ask the question of so many of you that have supported me, that have loved me. And I know that there's been questions and challenges, but I have a problem. I feel like we need to have an open mind in this town. We need more ideas and we need to give more people that are new a voice. I've decided to run for council Or let me say, I'm thinking of running for council and I'd like to hear what people have to say because I want the conversation to start now. What would you think if I chose to run for council? And that post garnered over 500 comments.
Wow.
Like, Khadijah, I would vote for you. You'll be a breath of fresh air. You'll do this. So I tested the waters.
Mm.
I tested the waters, and that's a template for anyone thinking of doing this. And when I read the post and I was looking for that negative comment, and I was scrolling for days looking for a negative comment and I couldn't find one, I said, my God, then maybe this is what you want me to do because I can't run away from this now. And so I basically went in and I submitted my application. And then when it came to looking for money, I knew I didn't have, or my husband didn't. My husband said, "You can run, except you don't spend." So
Those, those
I
spend for
said, okay.
savings.
So that breakfast, I actually charged. After that breakfast, I set up another fundraiser and I charged $50 for a plate to come eat jollof rice and basically raise money that way. And then I had a donation on Facebook and Instagram link to please donate to my campaign. And I was able to raise enough money for the posters, for the signs, and I did door hangers. And then I decided that I would only focus on my immediate community. So I live in a location where most of us are all new within the last 10 years. We've all moved from different parts of Canada, Toronto, and even Ingersoll. This is a very new community. And so I did the walking around here. I couldn't walk anywhere else. So I went to my neighbors and I said, hey, I'm your neighbor and I'm looking to run for council. I'm like, oh, great. So my neighbors supported me thinking, at least we have a voice because most of the people here felt like they come with their own ideas, even from moving from Hamilton, moving from Toronto. You have ideas of what Toronto is doing that you see a small town isn't doing, that we should do. A lot of people had all those ideas here and they felt like, yes, we have representation amongst us. And I think most of the votes would have even come from here. And then across town, sporadically, people looking at, oh, I know that woman. And I really did do something I feel like every politician that is new should do. You don't know everybody in town. You don't have clout. You don't have heritage. You don't have anything here. So what do? There are 4 exits into the town. Highway, 2 exits. Another exit out of town, about 3 of them going to different other small towns through the back roads. I just put all my signs in those exits. Put out the exit to my community, the 2, and I went and sat home. So as you drive out and drive in and go out and go in, and then I rented my old downtown store from my landlord and I put the biggest sign on the window at a 4-stop intersection where there was traffic lights.
Yeah, so
I
that
don't have
makes
anybody, but if
like
you see me every day for 2 months, maybe you'll vote for me.
you get yeah.
So that's the secret,
That's
guys. Anyone
fantastic.
can do this, I believe, but it has to start with you showing the history of communication. You can't just wake up one day without having done anything, being known or seen. And I think that's the lesson for any new person going anywhere. Get in there, get out there, say, understand people, and say and offer advice, solutions, and perhaps they give us a chance.
Yeah, make impact. And 2 things I learned: test the waters, like the way you did
Yes.
with the 25 people. That's awesome. And then the crowdfunding part of it, where you're asking, you know what? I'm not just asking for your money. I'm also providing a service. Come eat jollof rice and pay $50.
Yes.
That's still you, contributing to your community in one way or the other. So that's awesome. And I could relate a little bit, even though I didn't run for councillor, but I know that even this show that I am doing, I didn't even realize that I'm making some kind of impact. And right now, I'm a lawyer and I'm the PRO of the Canadian Association of Nigerian Lawyers. And
Yeah.
2 years ago, I didn't even know that association
Yeah.
existed. But then last year, they were looking for a young mind to be their public relations officer. And somebody had suggested my name. They called me
Yeah.
up like a week before the election and they said, you know what? We've seen what you do in the community and all of that, and would like you to run for PRO. I'm like, what? Like, I'm not. I don't know about that. She was like, think
Yeah.
about it. Like, I thought about it. I mentioned your name, so people actually agreed with me, and that's why we're. So the first, as I said, when I was asking you, you didn't have the fear of listening. That was the first thing that came to my mind. I don't know anybody like that. And if I then come out of my comfort zone and then go and run for this thing that has only 1 week left, and then I don't win, I will be so devastated because you could have left me where I am. And she was like, no, forget about that. People would
Yeah.
support and all of that. And I remember on the day of the election, I had to do a little campaign speech because some people were in person to vote and some people were going to vote online. And I can remember my voice was so shaky. But finally I won, and I was like, wow, okay, maybe some people are seeing something in me that I wasn't seeing in
Because
myself,
yeah.
right? And it's a
I
2 year turnaround.
definitely hear you. Yeah. I
Yeah,
had the
so
fear, but I felt the fear was worth it because I felt it's the first time they've ever seen this. Even if we don't win, guys, we set the path for somebody else.
mm,
Because it's all about breaking the stereotypes. And like I said, I'm so not used to racism in a way that I didn't grow up with it. So it takes me a while to realize, oh, you're doing that because of, oh, because I'm Black or because
oh,
maybe even I'm Muslim. So it takes
mm,
me a while for it to hit me that that's the reason why. So when I have to do anything, I do with a bigger sense of, let me educate you, you
mm,
know, this is what it is. And I think because of the education over the years of telling them no, first day, I forgot to mention the first time we came, the first year, Ramadan, I posted in the same group just after being here about a month or two. Ramadan happened, and I said, I'm a Muslim, I'm new to the community. We're celebrating Ramadan is a month when Muslims fast for the whole month, and I want to break bread with everyone. If you can attend this fast breaking at this location at this time, I'll be cooking our Nigerian cuisine, and I'd love to share with you guys. And people showed up.
oh,
So the
nice.
first friends that I made, the first four friends that I made were the four adults that came for that night and about 25 kids, teenagers that lined up to eat. And so for me, I knew that that was breaking that stereotype. And
Mm,
these people continue to ask me, okay, so as a Muslim, so how do you do this? And now people are so polite. Oh my God, Khadijah, if we go for this event, would you like to pray? Would there be a
mm,
real need for you to pray at some point? People are
mm,
actually asking and offering because you explained yourself, because you
mm,
came out and you broke that stereotype. And that's what it means for all of us. So, like I say to students, don't keep your value inside hidden. Let people know who you are because the more they know, the less they fear.
mm,
The more you
mm,
know, the more you realize how little you know. So for you, you need to give yourself out there the opportunity to be known and let somebody decide what they want to do with it. But don't hide who you are. And when people treat you a certain way, you don't know how to handle it. But a stare at a hijab, I'll be like, oh my God, are you looking at the hijab? Yeah, we Muslims use this, to cover because we feel like we sometimes we don't feel comfortable exposing our hair. Some people don't mind, but some people do. And when I explain that, oh, really? But that's so beautiful, that's all, guys. And that's what I try to live by. My creed is educating the ignorant person because it's not their fault. You are more
certainly.
educated because you've come all the way from your country. There's so much that went into that. You knew about other countries' rules and regulations and laws and how processes happen. You got yourself here. They don't know that. They were born and raised here. They don't know that. They haven't been through the rigmarole. So if you don't educate them the sacrifices that you've made, they don't appreciate it.
Mm,
So I say to people, that ignorant person needs help. Don't be angry. They need help. So you need to educate. So as an example, I won the election and a Somali family is here and everybody's feeling excited and happy. And they will go to the park with their siblings and a young 16-year-old white boy asked him, can he touch his skin? And he offered, oh yeah. So he gave him his hand and the boy touched his skin and then looked at his hand and said, but my hand didn't get dirty.
oh, wow.
And he said, oh, okay, can I touch your skin? So he
Mhm.
touched his skin and he said, but my hand didn't get white.
Oh,
And so the 16-year-old was like, no,
okay.
no, 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 you don't understand. My whole life, I grew up, I was born and raised here. I was told that if you touch a Black person, you'll get dirty because their skin is dirty.
Wow.
And so this 16-year-old and an 18-year-old sat down and had a conversation over race That was not the 16-year-old's fault.
True.
He was born and raised here and taught by his parents and his family. He says, I've been here, my grandparents, my parents, we all believe this. So ask yourself, as a Black person,
Mm,
how deep do you have to go to educate people? You
mm.
seize the opportunity to educate the one person that perhaps can go and influence a whole group of people in their family. So for us to keep quiet, we're doing ourselves a disservice. For you not to share your culture, your food, your fashion, your beauty, your music, you do yourself a disservice. So we have to come out and share. And that's my message to everybody. Just be proud of who you are and share who you are.
I like that. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't come out to share, and that's
Yeah.
that's awesome. So
Yeah.
continue to share. Don't stay in your comfort zone. Don't think, well, these people are just being racist or they just don't like me.
Yeah.
Show them what you have to offer, and that's that's
Yeah.
that's just key. And for those of you joining us, we have Councillor Khadijah here. If you're joining us from Canada, let us know what city you're repping, and if it's from outside of Canada, also let us know what country, what city. That's how we mark attendance on this show. So
Yeah.
before we go to the not so good part, which are the challenges that you face, because at the beginning I said we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
How did it feel when you won? How did you celebrate?
So it was a lonely night. Um, Basically, I went to the campaign office, which is the old office that I had that I set up as a campaign office. So I was in my campaign office, and the person who ran for deputy mayor, who's my friend, who asked me to run, we all came together because I had, again, jollof rice waiting for people who
The
were
love
going to
queen.
come. And so we were there, and we were there till about 8 o'clock, and the votes hadn't been counted. And then we looked at each other, and I said to her, I said, do you really want to be here when these results come out? Because I want to go home. I want to be at home. She's like, yeah, I think I'm going to go home too. But everybody else was at the council hall, and watching live and counting. And so I came home. My husband was in the States. He wasn't home that night, and I was alone. So my son and I were the only ones at home. So I went to the bedroom, and I just opened the laptop, and I was watching the live. And then at some point I said, what am I doing? If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. And the anxiety set in. So I just shut my laptop down. And then, lucky for us, we have a Nigerian in the town. He's the only Black in our town staff. And so when he saw that I won, he could not help it but call and say, hey, thank you, you won. And I looked at my phone and I was like, no, 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 I'm home. They're still counting. He says, no, I'm here. It's live. It's on the TV. You won. And I said, really? What? And so everybody started sending me the screenshot of me winning. And I didn't know what else to do. I just called my husband on the live, and I said, we did it. And he's like, we did it. So I took the screenshot of when I told him. And I just kind of, I was like, they actually voted for me. They actually voted for me. I'm so proud of Ingersoll. So essentially, like you said, there was fear. And then when fear happened and it became a validation, I just felt in my heart that now I owe a whole lot of people a lot of work. So let the work begin. And I couldn't say anything other than I just went on a live and I said, thank you, Rosemary. And I went on a live and I said, thank you, Ingersoll. We did it. And you know what? Let's get to work. I really appreciate the support and the love, and I won't let you down. And that's kind of how I ended my night. I just went to sleep.
Now winning and becoming the councillor, it's one thing to go through all that process of campaigning and getting into the office. Now in the office, has it been challenging? Has it been all that you thought about, or is even more?
It's been challenging, and it's been a learning experience. So the first thing I did was I offered during my campaign that because diversity matters, I was going to champion the cause for the diversity in Ingersoll. And so the first thing I put forward was the motion to set up a diversity committee, because we needed some form of um, we needed a collection of diverse people to be able to recommend to council issues within the community that they needed to see, because we cannot know everything and we cannot see everything. So I also felt like I needed a diversity committee to do that, and I put that forth. And I thought it was a very simple thing. But again, as counsel, it took a while to explain what I meant, to explain why and the value behind it. Because even initially, even the mayor felt we just won an election. We govern everybody. There's no discrimination. We are all. And I said yes, but not every community has their voice heard. There's diversity in Ingersoll that cannot be understood until we have a body that can help us dissect and digest and then present to us certain things that we may not see, we may not know. Because I have a community that we come back and we talk about our experiences. You won't have that, and you don't even know what that means until somebody explains it to you. So as a body, we need to have that open-mindedness to let a body come in and represent different parts of the community. And I talked that night till I was tired, and I realized, whew, this is hard. And so even though I introduced the motions in December, we were supposed to debate them in January. We won in November. So December, I introduced them. In January, we started debating them. We didn't actually pass it till March.
Oh, wow.
Because staff had to go do research. And then I was just struggling to get this all on the table before the Black History Month. It didn't happen. But then
So
it passed.
It's
And
that part
then we
where
had
you
an
think,
opportunity. Yeah, we passed it. And my deputy mayor was key to making sure that it didn't die. I give her the credit because she understood. And when you have people who truly want to understand what the issues are and who want to give people the room to feel heard, it meant that we were able to do that. And staff also had to have an open mind to go say, okay, how has this been done before in anywhere that it has ever been done? And we had a chance to do a Zoom call with all the newly elected across Ontario. I think we were about 100 and something. And as soon as we finished the call and we all had a nice time, I noticed again I was the only Black. So I just blasted everybody on that Zoom invite. And I said, I would love for each and every one of you to champion diversity in your councils. We need a champion in every town in Ontario. And as soon as we were done, Woodstock passed their diversity committee. And Tilsonburg, everybody has started to have that discussion. So I'm proud of doing that as the first step, but it was work. It was a lot of explaining. And that's when you realize that not everybody has your perspective, that not everybody understands your point of view. So we have a lot of talking to do. If a white person doesn't understand you, please explain to them. Let them know a little bit more about you, where you come from, your history, your background. Let us add value to ourselves as a collective by each taking on the responsibility to help everyone understand us, because it is work,
that's great.
especially
Yeah.
in smaller communities that are not as exposed to immigration. You need to do the work.
So, in other words, you're saying getting into office is just half the battle. The main battle is actually getting those policies, those ideas to be, put in place, and that's
And, and,
awesome.
and guess what? You do something like that, you realize God is watching, because
Mm,
we passed, and then staff had to put out an application invitation to community members who wanted to apply. So again, I was sharing it all over the post. I said, okay, we're recruiting for the committee. And that's the first thing that as a community member you can do to put yourself in some leadership position to be able to speak on behalf of your people, your community. So I would recommend everyone to take on committee assignments and positions in your towns if you want to actually be a part of solution making. And then when we put out that, and I shared and I kept begging different communities, I posted it in all the smaller groups that we belong to. Please don't miss out on being on the committee if you feel like you have a voice. And when we had the inaugural meeting, just May was our inaugural meeting, I almost cried because 13 people applied. And then we got to the table, and almost the whole world was represented. So there was a Chinese girl, a Filipino lady, a Pakistani lady, Jamaican lady, the Somali lady, me, Nigerian, the deputy mayor, and our clerk who was white. And everybody else that had applied did not want to come because they misunderstood what diversity meant.
mm,
A few people said they couldn't make it because they thought diversity was going to be about like accessibility or disability, but we
oh,
have that committee as well. So they dropped out. But imagine the table. Just imagine the diversity of this table. And the worst um, thing that we do in Canada is when we do diversity and we don't include Indigenous people, we have an Indigenous person that applied.
That's awesome.
And then she has, again, the whole two-spirited, community thing. And I just looked at the table and said, guys, how could we have done a better job? Like, this is amazing. So we have everyone as much as we can represented. And now the work begins.
Hmm. Work
Yeah.
begins. That's
Yeah.
that's great. So now we can just tell us one or two challenges that you have faced throughout the course of you starting your business or even as a counselor.
Challenges are, managing time
Mhm.
is something you have to get right. And for me, I've always been a professional worker and I had my business. So I'm kind of used to juggling and managing my time, traveling, doing my business distribution myself and, really building relationships with store owners over the years myself. It's challenging because when after COVID, we were trying to analyze, shops to even supply to. Shops are gone. Some shops have closed up. So there's a new set of shops. And then now we're like, so the challenge of trying to constantly stay afloat. And now again, a new community has come, and they're all Nigerians that have come and Africans that have come in the last 5 years. And they don't even know what I did like almost 10 years ago. Like they're like, oh, I've never heard of it. I never saw it. But the effort we put into marketing, people were calling from all over the world, like Australia, Italy, UK, Ireland. How can we get it? I want to distribute for you. But nobody knows us now because we're just all together trying to rise up again after COVID. So I think that's a challenge in business. You have to have passion, you have to be resilient, and you just got to stay the course because there's no giving up when you especially know you have something. And I also had the skincare line that I've just launched into a fresh packaging. And so that again, it's all social media. And then the challenge I face now is trying to make sure I'm straight faced for council and not when it's council time and straight face for business when it's business time and straight face, you know, for work. So work is easy. You go, you shut everything else down, you focus 100%. And as soon as I leave the office in the car, I'm making the calls. I'm talking all through till I get home. And then I'm booking meetings. And then I'm waking up on weekends. I'm making calls and meeting people and going around the community. So you have to be somebody who can multitask.
Mm.
You have to be a very spirited person who can rely on God and pray that everything's happening for a reason. So it's a lonely place to be. So if you're someone who needs people around you all the time, you don't maybe want to do this. You have to be able to make decisions yourself and think for yourself based on your inner values and principles. You can't be someone who is easily trying to please people.
Mm.
So I think that's pretty much it. You grow into this. I think it happens after 40 for everybody. You grow into this and you know that
Okay.
you gotta do your own thing. And that's where it's at. So
Would you say that it was easier to also run because your kids are now grown and they're little
yeah.
or more independent?
Yes. Yes. I don't know. We lost her, but yes, that's one of the things that I think helped me. Sorry, I lost your video.
Yes.
So yes, that was in fact the reason why my family thought it was okay. My daughter was just heading out to law school, and yes, life begins at 40, Tammy. So basically, she was heading to law school in the UK, leaving home actually
Mhm.
for 3 years now. And then my son has always been away for school. He just returned home after graduating. And my son, the last one, as he's planning to apply and leave,
Mhm.
I told him, I said, "What do you guys want me to do? Like, if I don't do this?" So essentially, everybody felt I was already doing it, and they think that it would be just worthwhile for me. My husband is always away, so yeah, it made it easier to make that decision because I wouldn't have done that if my kids were still young.
Mm.
And one of the reasons why it's important to say this now, if you're a woman with kids, even young kids, if you can afford to go to work and you still have young kids, you can afford to run for council
Mm.
because the statistics show that the reason why women don't run for politics is because of the kid issue. And the only reason why communities are lacking women voices is because of that same reason. But remember that every community has more women than men. So you're never going to get your issues really reflected if you don't make representation. We had a council of 5
men and only one woman. And then the mayor. So 6 men and 1 woman for over 16 years. And so when I decided to run and the deputy mayor joined the race and the existing lady ran, another lady came up. So we were 4 women that campaigned. And guess what? We all came in. So now we have 3 men and 4 women. So if you don't try, you don't know. And that's one of the reasons why people don't go into politics. Women feel more stressed that they have all these evenings that will be taken away. But again, if you can do a job, you can do this because it's not full time in many communities and communities outside of Toronto. It's not full time, it's a part time job. So, yes, I have every week their meetings, but like I said, you can juggle it and you can do it. And until you make that sacrifice, you will not have your representation.
And talking about women having a voice, that's true because earlier I was talking about my association. And funny part is, all of us that ran this time, usually it's always older people, men, and things like that. But last year, all of us were young people.
Yeah.
And out of the 6 of us, 5 of us are women. So only the president is the man and is older, over 50. And I know every time we have a meeting, we just laugh at him that blessed are you amongst women because we're all
And
women.
it's honestly very important to have that diversity too.
Yeah.
Because when I ran, I remember somebody asked me during the debate, what do you mean when you say because diversity matters? Because that's all I had on my posters, right? Because diversity matters. Vote KGJ because diversity matters. So the answer I had to him, I said, if you really think about it, diversity matters in everything we do. I said diversity in age, diversity in color, background, diversity in religious background, diversity in orientation, diversity in
And
anything you
gender.
want to think of
Mm.
matters. So when I say because diversity matters, I want you to look at your current council because they were all sitting with me.
Mhm.
And if you want some diversity, then vote for me. So it doesn't have
Absolutely.
to be just us thinking we're black and we need our diversity, or, you know, it is
Mhm.
about the table having some variety so
Of
that when we're
course.
having that discussion, everybody's perspective matters and we come to a common ground where somehow the decision makes everybody happy. So the best decisions I say I've made when the table is as diverse as possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're coming to the end of the show. And one thing that I would like you to tell that if everybody forgets everything, as I said, this topic is about you daring to be different, which was how I got to know about you in the first place, because you dared to be different in your business, in your community, and it's working for you. So what does dare to be different mean to you, and how do you want people to approach that?
Yeah. Dare to be different because you want to break the stereotype. So the stereotype is what people have in their subconscious.
Mhm.
Daring to be different from what they perceive you to be is what I think people should recognize. If you see people perceiving you to be a certain way, dare to help them see you come out of that comfort zone.
Mhm.
And that person becomes the one who toots your horn. No, 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 no. I know someone who's not like that. So
Mhm.
essentially, I'll share my Islamic statistics with you. So in the United States, for example, we moved from there because every time there's a terrorist attack, for example, perpetrated by a Muslim, it gets 76% coverage.
Mhm.
But when it happens by white supremacists, it doesn't get up to 20% coverage.
Mhm.
Simple statistic. So 76% is so much coverage that almost 90% of the community has a negative feeling when asked about how do you feel when you see a Muslim. So when the statistics were pulled, about 86% of New Yorkers say they fear when they see a Muslim. So the next question was, what what would do you know? The next question was, do you know a Muslim? And
Mhm.
70% of them, only they said 22% knew a Muslim. So the next question was now, because you know a Muslim, are you more or less afraid? And then another 26% said they're less afraid because they know a Muslim. So
Mhm.
what's the message to Muslims? Educate the next person about who you are, what you stand for, the peace that your religion preaches, and the tolerance that we preach. Because one person did something that affects everybody doesn't mean everybody's like that. So The same message I say to Blacks. If 80% think you have a negative connotation when they think about you, you break that stereotype by educating them about who you are. Because until they know you, they can't fear you. And that's my message to everyone.
Well, that's awesome, and that's a good way to end today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining, and thank you for all of you that left a comment. We were reading, and I was smiling through it. And thank you so much, Khadijah, for joining. And I hope everybody has been able to learn a thing or two that can be applied to your own peculiar situation. And maybe I will be inviting you people as well on my show, to celebrate this yourself, what you have been able to achieve, and all of that thing. So please, guys, next 2 weeks, this show is now bi-weekly because yes, I have been a little busy, and I know I've been away for over a year now. So now I've made it bi-weekly, so it's more easier to continue to bring fantastic guests to the show. So please, in another 2 weeks, we will be back again with another fantastic guest, and I hope everybody is going to be joining again and sharing this video. So thank you everyone for joining, and have a fantastic Saturday.
Thank you, guys.